I went for the longest title possible because everyone
Yeah, I
knows the
like it.
longest title wins.
Hey, David, great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Ricky. It's good to be here.
Awesome, man. Hey, David, take us through your career journey. How did you get into tech? Give us the whole thing.
All right, you'll have to interrupt me because I can easily monologue this story. So feel free to all right, hold on, or give me the hand gesture, or play the Oscar music, and they're like, all right, wrap it up. So I grew up in Sacramento, California, which isn't known for tech at all. It is a little bit, you could argue a little bit now, but 11 years ago when I graduated college from Sac State, no one's in tech out there at that time. It's not even a known thing. But what is the state government of California is in Sacramento. So there's a lot of these office jobs. And I don't mean to be negative when I say this. Like they're like, when you think of like the standard office job of you go in, you do pretty not interesting work, though impactful depending on your position in the government. That was like the main thing. And of course you can go get into, there's like a restaurant industry and stuff. And there's other things, but it's not really like too many white collar jobs. It's really like a blue collar city with the government. And that's all there is in Sacramento. There's other stuff I'm being grossly oversimplifying. And so out of college, my folks had moved to a different part of the state. I was on my own. I'm like staying with my girlfriend and her mom through college, just trying to get by, get my degree. I graduate and I remember applying to 127 of those boring government office jobs. Literally had to print, oftentimes printing a resume out, writing in the slightly different address, just like a different suite number. 127 times I'm shipping these things in. I finally get an interview, do really well in the interview and get a job offer. Awesome. Finally, I can make some money. I'm talking like 36 grand, probably not a lot, but in SAC at the time. And when you're 8 or 23, I'm ready to go, right? Somehow through a friend of a friend of a friend, I ended up getting an opportunity to interview for a company called ClearSlide in San Francisco as an entry-level customer success specialist. I didn't know what any of those words meant at the time at all. Like literally didn't know the job. Like I was just like, I don't know, but it's San Francisco. I've visited the city before, right? It's like the big bright lights of the West Coast other than like LA, right? So I'm like, yo, I got to make it. I'm going to make it. Like I'll find a way. And so I'm showing up to show you, Ricky and Sean, how not prepared I was for this level. The only outfit that I had were these like bright, like these shiny patent leather wedding shoes with the like design on them. And I've got these like Dockers that don't fit. And like my dad's old button down. Like I looked like a fraud. Like I was a fraud. I was not like, I didn't. And so I'm like, but hey, I got some hustle in me. So I'm going to try to figure this thing out. Okay. I'm in the interview. And it was one of those interviews where there's literally 3 conference rooms lined up, 1 hiring manager in each room. You go 1 to 1, back to back. At the end, hopefully one of them wants to hire you and you get the job. So I went to the first one, went into the second one. And I remember walking from the second door to the third, like looking down at the carpet and being like, they are not going to hire you, Dev. Those 2 did not go well. And I know they are not going to call. But I had to see what was behind door number 3. And so I said, I got one more shot. I'm like in my head, I'm like, come on, dude, you got this. The sports guy's coming out of me like, go score and win the game. So I go into this third room. I open the door and I see the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. And I just went, God damn it. I have to interview with a beautiful woman on top of it. Like of all the pressure of getting my career off the ground, I'm out of place. I don't know where I am. There's just this beautiful woman across from me. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to like, okay, this is great. And I'll explain why I'm describing her as such. So halfway through the interview, right? I'm interviewing, I'm trying my best. She pauses me in the middle and goes, hey, Devin, let's just pause for a sec. I can tell you're trying way too hard. This isn't who you are. And I can sense that. Why don't you take a moment, gather yourself, and we'll continue the interview. And I was like, like sigh of relief, but like nervousness and like, all right. I'm not lying that I blacked out. I have no idea what I said. I was awake. I said things. No, couldn't for $1 million, Ricky, tell you what in word I said.
Yeah.
I just remember grabbing the handle of that door and walking out, walking down the block to my car and being like, well, at least I got a job in SAC. Like I got something going for me, right? Like I fully did not believe I got it. So 3 days later, I get a phone call from this gal. Her name's Vaishali, that third hiring manager. And she offers me the job. She says, I think you have a lot of grit. I think you have a lot of raw potential, and I think you should join my team. And I said, let me think about it and call you back. Because I was so stunned. I was so stunned that I was like, I don't even know this is real. And so I ended up calling her back. I said yes. And I remember literally hanging up the phone, like dropping to my knees, like very like over dramatic movie style. Yes, did it. And I got the job and all that stuff. So that's how I got into tech. I ended up joining Vaishali's team for 3 months, ended up moving into sales at ClearSlide for about a year. And then I left the company. Vaishali left the company. And the reason I've been so describing her is she is now my wife. We have 2 lovely children together because we reconnected 3 years after said interview, ended up reconnecting, dating, and then doing the whole marriage, house, and kids scenario. And there's a lot of gaps from then to now we can talk about, but that's how I got my start.
That's cool, man.
I'm gonna roll back to the whole, that's your current wife. Did you just blow the interview where she's like, he's a good looking dude, I think I want him on my team?
I would love to say yes. I would love to
He's still
lie.
big. Yeah.
And complete upgrade. Like I didn't have a beard at the time. I was 10, 11 years younger. I'm like, I didn't know shit. I don't know if I can curse on this. I didn't know anything. I definitely, and I can confirm she did not see in me what I saw in her at that time. I was like, I knew she doesn't believe me to this day. I was like, I don't know how, when, or where, but I like this woman and I will find a way to court her, if you will. And so she was like, nah, you're just this dude on my team. And there was nothing, literally nothing, not even a glimmer of hope until like literally years later, we're just like hanging out with a bunch of friends and people hang out and all that good stuff. So then it started. But yeah, I would love to be like, yeah, she was so into me and I knew it, but that's not true at all. That's not true at all.
That's a cool story, man, regardless. It's probably one of the dopest stories we've had on the show. We know Sacramento well. In fact, we used to go to Chico heaps. So we know that area. So we bought a software company. Believe it or not.
I know the airport really. Yeah.
I attended Kings games, so I got to know City a little bit.
There you go. Yeah,
It's all right, man. It's all right. It's not the worst, as you explained.
I love SAG. It's still home for me, and it's come a long way. It's got a lot more going for it. People, like I said, there's some tech companies out there, or at least people in tech moving to Sacramento and stuff. So it's been cool. I go back a lot because I have family. It has changed. It has changed a lot, but
yeah.
You have to get back after this podcast drops because they were like, how dare you slander our city.
Hey, Devin, so you go from this shy, goofy kid to this mega content creator, right? You got the reader newsletter out. You pop in things on LinkedIn that's getting massive reactions and comments, and it's thought-provoking. What happened in those 13 years? What was the transition that got you from that shy dude?
So I was never shy. I was probably had a lot of unearned confidence, but I was out of place, I would say. So I was never shy. Obviously, you're shy when you're out of fish out of water, but I've always had a bigger personality is a nice way to say it. My, family might describe it a little more brash, but so I was in sales. What happened was, Ricky, on getting to sales was this role was entry-level customer success, which was just think of helping account managers make sure people are using the software and basic stuff. And so the good news is this job was, they had like farm baseball, like farming system of this role goes to AE if you do it right. I never had any interest. I never thought I was going to get into tech, let alone even had the thought of I'm going to go be a SaaS sales rep. That was never, ever in my thing. One day, the VP of sales comes to the floor. There's probably 30 of this role that I'm in all of our teams. And hey, we're opening up interviews next week for AE. If you even think you're ready, take your shot. Go give your name to Veronica in this office and we'll set you up. I was like, cool. Everyone on my team, there's 12 guys on my team. 10 of them immediately like ran to Veronica and gave them the name. They're like, we're going to do this. Me and this happenstance, my buddy at the time, I was like, I'm not no used car salesman. I'm not doing that. Like, not me. I'm good. I'm already above where I thought I would be in life. I'm already made it. So not made it. I'm like, I'm good. I'll be okay. Ended up talking to some like my mentor and stuff, and he was like, look, you have an opportunity. You should at least go through the door. You don't have to take the job if you don't want it, but it sounds like you're going to accelerate your career. And the base went from like 35K, whatever we're making, 36K, was like very intrigued, to like, I think the base salary was 70, 2X. I'm like, twice as much money. I had no idea 10 times more stress was around the corner as well. Hey. So anyway, at 11:59 a.m., I remember I was like literally barely made it. We had to be in her office by noon, like 2 days later. 11:59, I walk in. I'm like, Veronica, put my name on the list. I'm going to go for it. They already knew you, so you didn't have to do an interview. You did a mock pitch. And it was the VP. No, it was a director. There's 2 or 3 directors. And then there was one of his or her managers. So you had a director and a hiring manager, and whoever, I don't know. I think that I learned later they actually picked like who they wanted. I don't know. I got with whatever group I got. Again, I was like, I don't know. I just do a lot of shrugging at this point in my life. I'm like, I don't know. And you had to pitch ClearSlide to them as the buyer, right? So there's the VP of sales and the director of sales, and you had to sell it to them. I'd been there for 3 months. So I like had just finished official onboarding, and I'm just calling people to try to use features. I have no idea how to position this thing to sell. I have no executive presence. I have very little business acumen. I'm still in those wedding shoes. I still can't afford regular shoes. Like I'm still rocking wedding tuxedo shoes with my like $20 Dockers. And I remember being on the call. You're doing your best, right? They coach you a little before. They give you like a pitch deck and you can practice and all that stuff. And I remember at about 5 minutes left in the call of a 30-minute call, they turned up the heat and they really start like hammering you with objections. Like they're just blunt, like they're trying to throw you. I didn't know until later. They're trying to throw you off your game to see how you respond. And so I remember the objection was like, look, Devin, why should I buy this from you when I can buy it, get it, this feature thing for free and cheaper with this other company? Like I never even heard of that other company. I don't know. And I remember my head going, you know what, Matt? I'm not supposed to do this, but for you today, that feature's free 99. What do you say? And there was the long silence, a lot longer, and the same laughs where they just burst out laughing. They're like, this kid doesn't know anything. He's bullshitting us. And they laugh, hard laughter where I'm like, it was so much laughter that I really wasn't sure if they were laughing with or at me. Did I just become a bar story or am I going to get hired? Probably both, but I did get hired and they took me on. They're like, dude, the fact that you didn't fold is why we're taking a chance on you. We know you don't know shit. They basically said that on day one. We know you don't know anything, but you made us laugh. You didn't fold. Let's see what we can do. And then I ended up working on that team for about a year.
That's pretty awesome. And then you've gone to work for what I would call sexy SaaS, like two of the big brands, like Gong and Clari.
Yeah.
It's in the headlights. Everyone knows it. It's not like what we ran. Like we were successful, but it wasn't a known brand. So what's been your biggest takeaway from each one of these? You obviously still at Clari, but what was your biggest takeaway from Gong? And what are you learning the most at Clari?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I bounced around to like little startups, like I ping-ponged around or pinballed around a little bit until I got to Eventbrite. That was probably the bigger known company. They were probably 3 to 6 months away from going public when I left and went to Gong. Another story there, but I know I'm just hitting you with some monologues on the story train today.
We love it.
You want to hear how I started Clari or at Gong?
Yeah, go for it.
It's kind of a story. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can tell me. You can cut it if it's no good.
Stories are the best.
So I was at Eventbrite for about a year and a half on the large accounts team and had figured it out pretty quickly. So I sucked. By the way, I should be clear. I was terrible at sales for the first 3 years, like just not good. At Eventbrite is where it clicked and I started to get good. What'd you say, Ricky?
I still would have figured that out by now.
Yeah, I'm like, I wouldn't say good. I would say sucked less and became good at Eventbrite. And to the point where I got on autopilot, where I can put in I don't have to work very hard or very long and hit quota. If I wanted, I could work really hard. And I was like, I'm just going to kind of coast and cruise. And so I had tried to get into marketing at that time because I was like, I know I don't really want to sell anymore. Let me think of marketing. Got all the way through the interview process to the last stage, got turned down at the last minute. I tried to get into sales enablement. No roles, like I'm talking to a bunch of people trying to get anything to happen. Nothing's, I'm like, crap, I'm stuck. And I'm like, well, I'm going to leave, but I don't know when, or I just know doors open. So I'm sitting at my desk one day and my director of sales comes up to me and she says, hey, Dev, Chris, our VP found this article. He really liked it. Why don't you read it and share it with our sales team? Like in a couple hours, we had a team meeting. Same shrug. All right, cool, whatever. I'll do it. Read the article and I am fully blown away. I'm like, this is genuinely the best like B2B content I've ever read. And it was from Gong. Chris Orlob was writing about using data to explain the optimal time to talk ratio. So how much should you talk? How much should you listen as a seller to get the most success? The way it was written, very punchy, fast paced, street level, and data backed. I was like, holy, this is cool. And I remember thinking, if I ever wrote anything like this, it'd be like this. Go to my meeting, whatever. After the meeting, I had one of those blind recruiting calls. You know, when they ping you and they won't tell you the company, but they'll be like, it's a super exciting Series A, 2-time founder, unlimited PTO opportunity. I never say yes to those, but I said yes once because like I said, I was like feeling stuck. I'm like, whatever, I'll roll the dice. And I'm on the recruiting call, and this gal's talking about the company at Series A. It's just really exciting Israeli company. They do call recording and really cool stuff with analytics. And I was like, is this Gong by chance? She goes, yeah, it is Gong. That's the company that's hiring. And I went, yo, the stars are aligning today. So yeah, sign me up. I'll go sell this. Like, whatever. Let's go do it. Gong at the time was 40 global employees, 12 in the States. And I ended up interviewing and getting the job as the second sales rep in 2017. And so that's how I got there. It wasn't like I was researching the industry and I went and, I picked the winning horse. No, it was just the stars aligned. And what's funny is right after I took the first call with Gong in person, like the first real interview, I went to their competitor, Chorus, and submitted for their AE role. And they never even responded to me. They never even replied, no, thank you. They just didn't say anything. And so I was like, okay, we'll go with Gong. And it just was on the sales team for 2 years. And then I moved over to marketing and then ended up scaling the marketing team that I ran for 3 years.
And you interviewed with Chris all about Gong?
No, because it was a sales job. I interviewed with Jameson Young, who's still, now he's the
Right.
SVP of sales. So he hired me. He was my hiring manager. And then the COO and the CEO. That's who I talked to.
And then talk to us about switch from sales to marketing. What brought that about? And what role in marketing did you start in and why?
It was funny because when I interviewed with Jameson, he's the kind of common where you see yourself in 5 years type question. And I was very clear. I was like, man, I'm not going to be your rep forever. I'm not going to be a rep for the next 5-10 years. I'll be one for a couple of years, but I want to move into marketing or sales enablement or something with I didn't even say the word content. I think I said something with writing because I was an English major in college. And so always been a writer. And so I was like, I just know I want to explore that kind of side of my abilities. I was like as nebulous or fluid as it was. And he was like, all right, cool. The way that it happened is another story. I feel like I'm just like around the campfire with you guys telling these longer stories.
That's what these are.
Okay, cool. And if they're not good, you'll just cut them later. So that's all good. I know how showbiz works.
We
It'll
cut
be
them
like
like
60 seconds.
together. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah. All of this story will be like 1 minute. You'll just cut it down. I am Devin from Clari.
Yeah.
So,
I met a hot girl, got a job, done.
Yeah, the cut will be this beautiful woman I was interviewing with, and I got the job, and then LinkedIn cancels me because I'm a misogynist, according to that one clip. So what happened? Okay, so here's how it started. I'd probably been at Gong for about 1.5 years, and it was starting to, I don't want to say take off yet, but it was we were successful. Like even from day one, dare I say, it was the challenges you would expect. I think we were like 2 million ARR when I started, or 10. No, it wasn't 10 because I remember being there for 10. Somewhere in that 2 to 5 range, right? So a little bit of it figured out, but you haven't snowballed yet. Like you're still very much in the trenches and knife fight and all that. And I remember having this idea of we have Chris Orlov with these Gong Labs stats and this great content, and podcasts were starting to take off 5-6 years ago. And I went to Udi, the CMO, and I said, look, I have this idea. Me and Chris are going to do a podcast, and each episode, we're just going to break down one of these stats and just like talk shop around it. And it was a meeting with me, him, and Chris. And he said, no, I don't like that idea.
Not you two. Yeah.
It was, no, I don't like that idea. But I have another idea. LinkedIn just messaged me last week about this new feature called LinkedIn Live. So how about instead of a podcast, how about you guys do a live show on LinkedIn? Now, some of you might hear, wow, that's a super cool opportunity. If you've been in the game at all, a pre-recorded audio podcast and a live video show are very different things, like extremely different things. Much harder to do and all much more complex. But I was like, that's my shot. Give it to me. I'll take that shot. So we got a little crew together. They would come into the office. 2 guys would come into the office every Tuesday. I would write the script it out. Me and Chris would run the show called Gong Labs Live for, I think, about 16 or 20 weeks, something in that range, like 4 months. Chris quit like 2 or 3 months in. He was like, this is too much work. I'm good. You can do it. And so I just started running with it. But around halfway through that show, Chris opened up the first role for his team. So Chris was senior director of product marketing, wrote all this content I'm talking about. He was hiring his first content marketing manager. And we had conversations about it. And I just wasn't ready to quit because I had finally gotten good at sales. I was finally making money, like 6 figures, money's in the bank. I'm buying Jordans. I'm traveling. Like I'm feeling pretty damn good about my life. I'm like, really now I've made it. Still haven't made it, by the way, but at the time I thought I did. And I was like back and forth, dude, do I find like 6 years, it took me 6 years to get good at this thing. And I'm going to leave it to go like do content marketing. And I know my income's going to drop like fairly considerably. So he convinced me in a good way. He basically didn't convince me to do it. He convinced me to choose. Chris was like, you just need to decide. And what really helped me is I remember sitting in one of the common areas at the Gong office, and I was working on something or pretending to work on something. And Chris walked by with a candidate, and he was walking him to go seek Udi for the job. And some competitive nature or maybe just loss aversion flared. And I was like, oh, that's literally the opportunity leaving if you don't try. That's the guy's going to get it instead of you. So I went and talked to Chris and Udi, and Chris was all in. He's yeah, dude, of course. Like I want you. Udi, to fast forward a 30-minute conversation, was like, you've been successful at Gong. You're well liked, and you've proven that you know how to run these programs because you just ran this live show, right? And I've written some blogs and stuff for them as well. He's like, you need to go get Jameson's approval. Because I told Jameson in that opening interview, I won't be your rep forever. He quoted that. He said, I thought I was going to have to go sell him, Sean. I was like, I got to go get my VP on a walk and talk and like just sell this fucking guy on why he should let me go. I was the number 2 rep on the team. Like I was hitting quota every quarter, crushing. So I'm like, you're not going to want me to go do marketing. And at like some halfway point, he was like, hey man, yeah, that's all good. Like as soon as I asked, he's like, yeah, that's cool. And I was like, but he's no, I remember you told me when you interviewed that this moment might happen. And I was like, holy shit. Wow. Okay. Full circle. And then he said one of the nicest things ever, which was, if you change your mind or you suck at it, you can always come back here, which was his way of saying, I got your back if it doesn't work out. And so that took so much pressure off because, I really look up to him. He's a friend, mentor, boss. And so for him to say, yeah, go for it, I got you, it took a lot of that kind of uncertainty away. And so I said, cool. So I went, took a little time, finished the quarter, had to hit quota, finished the quarter, closed the one deal I needed. It was like the classic close this one, largest deal I've ever closed to hit quota and have this thing happen while getting married, full 4-day Indian ceremony. So like all this stuff happened, it worked out, got married, came back, literally picked up my desk from one side, all the box, like my box full of stuff, walked 45 feet, whatever it was, 80 feet to the left, put my box down, and I became the 7th or 8th marketer. And my my title was content strategy. Yeah, that was it.
I love in both of the stories, right? Like in the first job you're going for, you basically stopped and be like, be honest and see what happens. And you get a job and a wife out of it, which is pretty good in one interview, right?
A career and a wife. I'll take that all day.
And then you do your second one going to Gong, and you're honest. You didn't get told to, but you're honest in that conversation, right? I'm not forever or this. And then when the opportunity that you really want comes up, your honesty pays off and you continue that opportunity. That's powerful because being honest in an interview is not the easiest thing to do. So that's,
I would say most of us tend to shave some truth off on those interviews.
But you're the proof that sometimes being honest in these things can lead you to the things that you're actually looking for.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to have some of those discussions and then grow from there. And then I love your current title, right? Like you said before, earlier when we were chatting, it's the longest possible title you could get. But the fact that these sort of roles exist now, right? Director of Content and Thought Leadership. Your role is about driving thought leadership about how people are thinking about stuff, similar to what Chris was doing back in the day at Gong. Can you tell us a bit more about that role and why you love it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, was at Gong for 3 years, right? So built from one-man team, scaled it to 6 direct reports, launched our podcast, shows, all this type of stuff. I really built out that content engine. At Clari, it is somewhat similar. I joke like Clari and Gong are like the exact same, but mirrored opposites. At Gong, it was growth at all cost era, cheap money, big, bold brand, hyper growth, super fast. Like I think they're one of the top 10 fastest growing startups, at least at that time, like just very like just up and to the right. And then here at Clari, it's the opposite in that it is the growth. We're in the efficiency era right now. And Clari is a very precision based, like their DNA of the company is like very precise. It makes sense. It's like a reflection of the product, right? It's about precision. And the brand is much more tame, right? It's like your executive safe, more at the time when I joined, more of a safe brand. And so it's been interesting because there's the temptation or the allure of, and it happened in the listening tour as I'm talking to people, they're like, oh yeah, you're Devin for this. Oh yeah. So what are you going to do? Come build Gong here? And I was like, no, not at all. And what I ended up telling people was I'm not here to build another Gong. I'm here to build Clari 2.0. And what my goal was like, to be very clear, I am here to shake it up. You didn't get the Gong guy here to become bland or to be tame, right? And at the same time, I'm not going to copy paste that playbook because that playbook worked with that team in the market at that time with the skills and resources we had available to us. None of that is the same. It's a version of, but it's not the same. So the playbook is, what have I learned from that playbook I wrote at Gong? And what will I pull here, which is a lot of the philosophy and a lot of the direction I like to take things. But the details of that strategy and the execution are going to be very different because efficiency era, different team with different skills and different resources available.
So I legit thought you were going to go further than that.
Oh yeah, I paused.
Yeah. So good. I was going to ask you on back of that though, you always had this thing, the reader, wildly successful newsletter. What was the mission behind that? Why start another thing when you've already got so much on your plate? Your kids, family, you're making money, you're doing all the good things in life. Why take another header?
Why would you do this to yourself? I think it's the crux of being a highly ambitious individual, which is always wanting to do more and proving to myself. But the truth is the reader started while I was at Eventbrite at the very end. What happened was when I didn't get that marketing job, which the funny point was the way I didn't get the job was I took a personality test. I won't tell you if I passed or failed, but the feedback I got and why I didn't get the job was like literally they printed it out, by the way. Like Sean and Ricky,
I love
you know
it.
how disrespectful it is to like, this
Here's
is
your
Ricky.
personality.
Imagine, so we have the results of your personality test and then looking at it on a piece of paper. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, you're not curious enough.
Yeah.
That was the feedback I got. Like
Love
the
it.
reason in my brain of why I didn't get, you're not curious enough. So I'm like, okay, so I took your test, not curious enough on paper. And that's why I'm not getting the job. So what I realized was if the company I work for is not going to give the sales guy with no marketing experience a job in marketing, no CMO or VP of marketing at an outside company is going to give me a shot. You're going to look at my LinkedIn and say, account executive, why would I hire you for this? So I realized if I need experience, I needed credibility and I needed experience, and experience would give me that skill and credibility that I lacked. So I started the reader with, I think I went on Fiverr and I was like, hey, I write blogs now. If you need blogs or emails, because that's what I knew how to do. And so I started the reader and I was just trying to do hourly work. So when I went to talk to an Udi or someone else who might hire me, I could say, yeah, I know I'm a sales guy on paper, but I started this thing where I've been freelancing. So I'm hitting quota during the day. Even at Gong, while I was in the sales role, I'm hitting quota during the day and night and weekend, because y'all know that's sales, and moonlighting as a freelance writer to get that experience going. And so I always had that going. And then I would say, Ricky, about a year into the marketing role at Gong, I started getting DMs and emails from people who were way more senior than me or way more experienced in B2B marketing, asking for time to pick my brain. And I remember the first one happened. I was like, hey, who's this lady? Click her profile. I'm like, director of demand gen. She's done this for 12 years. Why the hell does she want to talk to me? What am I going to teach her? I'm a fraud. I've been doing this for 12 months waiting for that email of, hey, Dev, it's been a good run, but we're going to put you back in sales. I'm like waiting for that moment. And so what I realized once I started taking these calls and they started happening more frequently as the Gong brand exploded and the company was so well known, I was like, hey, I have a lot of stuff I'm telling people for free. Why don't I put it into a newsletter? Why don't I just start to write these thoughts and these experiences down to help other people? And then I'll build an audience. At one day I don't think I used the word monetize at the time, but like I just knew owning an audience was a very valuable thing. So if I could take this very valuable experience, create a newsletter and create an audience, then good things would happen.
Man, I'm going to ask you a really broad question because we deal with early stage founders, right? Early stage companies. What makes a good content? Because especially nowadays, you got ChatGPT, Bard, everything else, right? So you can spin up content really quickly. Go on LinkedIn, it's really difficult. There's so much noise. You have to optimize your feed, all the stuff that you know, but most people don't. Can you touch on 2 or 3 things about what makes a great content?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a formula, a 3-part formula I follow since those Gong days for what makes highly engaging content. And it has to be insightful, relevant, and actionable. And I'll throw in a bonus in there lately, which is entertainment. It has to be entertaining. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be Jimmy Kimmel Live. It's not a show that's like mostly for entertainment, but it has to be enjoyable. People have to want and enjoy consuming the content, because the truth is, content marketing in B2B has been informative. It leans, if you think of it as a spectrum of how entertaining versus informative or educational it is, it always leads towards that latter one, almost always. Or companies try too hard and they almost go like too big on the entertainment side. And it's watch Ricky and Sean and Devin eat hot wings while they talk marketing, which is not a bad idea, but it's almost like too distant from the product and they're offering, right? So what I've done for each team and everyone I consult is, as you look through your content, is it insightful, relevant, and actionable? So insightful, I always have this kind of joke. Does it pass the eyebrow test? When you're reading something, if it has any emotional pull, your eyebrows dance. They'll go up like, oh, that's interesting. That's surprising. I haven't thought of it that way. Or they might furrow and go down. Oh, Ricky's full of shit. That's not true. What's the guy talking about?
That is true.
I don't mind what your eyebrows do as long as they move, because it means there's some sort of insight, some sort of emotional pull happening. That's a good thing. Relevant, super simple. Is this something that is relatable, or is this something my audience cares about right now? Actionable. Of the advice that I just gave, or rather of the insight I just shared, or the experience I just shared, is there something actionable that they can do right now? Could be a template, could be 3-step checklist, could be here's exactly what you should do next time. Those 3 things make highly engaging content. And then again, I would say the brand or your style is that entertainment factor. Like how do you package that up in a way where people are like, oh, Sean wrote something, let me read it.
Said no one ever, but yes. Fair.
You really get into it. What, three posts last week?
I've done one this
There
week.
you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm making moves,
man.
mate. Slowly.
Making
I like
big
it.
moves. And how do you get that repeatability? How do you settle on audience base? What mindset do you need to get yourself into to go, I'm actually just talking to Sean? And then whoever then reads it is amazing. But really, I've got one person or one type of audience in my head. Because it's hard, right? LinkedIn is a global thing. And depending on your network, you could get, like, Kiwis may love that, but you may piss off Aussies, and Americans are like, what are these idiots talking about? Like, how do you get that balance right?
Might be a little ignorant to the international appeal, to be honest, but I've never actually said this before. I don't have the time to learn all the cultures and countries that could be reading this, because really what then I'm doing is like personifying. So what I try when I'm writing, I'm going to answer it slightly differently, Ricky, is less of persona focused and more problem focused. So if you think of persona focus, you're like, what is a typical VP of marketing? Let's say that's my target audience, right? What do they care about? And what happens is you go down the list of demographic information and personal details, but you don't actually get details, you get generalizations. This person is generally this educated, generally makes this much money, generally has 2 kids. And now you're writing for like a Frankenstein, because that person doesn't actually exist. They're somewhere between the lines. And so if I was going, will this work for UK or Aussies or Kiwis or Americans? I got to personify you, and I don't know how to do that. Instead, I'm going to focus on the problems that I have experienced, that I have solved in the way that I have solved them. If you, Ricky, you, Sean, or you, the UK Ricky, the Canadian Ricky, is like, if you identify with my experience, if you identify with these problems, and if you enjoy my tone, with my style, welcome to the club. You're in my audience, my crew, and you'll like reading my content. But I don't think of it much more than that.
That's good tip. Don't complicate it, right? To your advice, just maintain those 3 or 4 steps and keep at it. So
See, it's the sales guy in you coming out. Yeah, you identify
Me?
a problem, you solve the problem, and that's how you write. You write that process, which I think is powerful. I think one of the things that people are noticing is happening a lot now is that, you know, some of the old things that used to happen in sales to generate lead flow is changing, and content is becoming a super important part in how you build brand and lead flow. And I guess someone who's been on both sides, how have you seen this shift occurring over the last 12 months?
Yeah, a lot of shifts this year for sure. I would say this is the biggest year of change. We could probably all thank AI as like the flagship reason for that change. There's a lot I can impact there, Sean. I think like one of the biggest changes I would say is it's actually been a good thing. So it's funny you bring up the sales thing in me, which is I've always been a performance minded marketer because I've been a number on a spreadsheet for most of my career, right? For 6 years, it's like your value is that percentage next to your name at the end of the quarter, as is your influence in the organization, right? So it's not just like your paycheck, it's like your power, if you will. And when I'm creating my content, running content strategies, advising, all that stuff, it's like, what is the outcome we're really here to do? Because if you're doing marketing that isn't resulting in revenue, that's a hobby. That's a hobby. It's not a career. Because I love shooting hoops. I love to shoot 3-pointers. I'm not good enough to make money on it. So basketball's a hobby. That's the truth. And then if you want to be honest, you're a cost center in the marketing org and you need to be tied to value. Now, the challenge is with content marketing, it's often so undervalued, misunderstood, and misused that it's not tied to strategic company goals that the CEO cares about. It's not measured in a way that is clearly or even if indirectly tied to pipeline and revenue. And so when the chief efficiency officer is looking at who do I cut as part of this riff, brand, content marketing, design all get let go because they are the furthest clear linear path to revenue. So I share all that because I think, especially if I can do my job right and get my message out, I think we'll be able to start to move that the other way, where people stop viewing content and content marketing as a list of deliverables, right? They stop doing checkbox marketing of, okay, we need to have a podcast, we need to have a newsletter, we need to have a website optimization. Don't look at it like that. Instead, look at it as a way to create demand pipeline. Look at a way to accelerate demand, which is pipeline efficiency. Look at a way to close deals, which is more tightly to revenue. So when you look at it from the outcome lens and a strategic lens, content creation all of a sudden becomes extremely important and something that you need to invest in instead of a nice to have thing that's the first thing to cut when it's budget season.
Yeah. I remember personally going through this a few years back, and I was lucky to have a really talented CMO in Carla, and she built out a big content team, and it was legit. You'd look at it and go, why do we have writers? Why do we have so many writers? We have so many writers. She's like, well, if you want to stop suckling on the teat of basically digital Google AdWords, you need content, you need demand, you need to be actually putting stuff out there that's going to bring people through the door. You can't pay forever and hope you can maintain the run rate. And we've had plenty of arguments about why, especially when it came to having to cut costs and do things like that. You're right. But do you think that's changing a little bit now as people realize, I think content is a lot more important than it was? I don't know if people are still tying it together as well as you're talking about, like actually tying it to revenue. And I don't know if there's a really smart way you can talk about doing that, but do you think it's changing a little bit in terms of, I remember we argued about it back in the day, whereas now I don't think it'd be as big an argument. Now we've got to keep those people.
I think people understand the influence content has because of how prevalent it has been in our non-work lives, our personal lives. We're all on some social media platform. If you're listening to this, I guarantee you're on LinkedIn or something, right? And so I think that the hurdle of why is this important that's a lower barrier because CEOs are reading newsletters that they subscribe to from other companies or firms like investment PEs and stuff that like publish newsletter and content. They're getting recommendations from podcasts. And so because it's influenced their personal life, I think executives are now quicker to say, yeah, we should, this makes sense. Like I get it. The then challenge though is still the execution from like understanding content has value as business initiative, all the way to, okay, what you said, Sean, we need to actually invest in writers. That means headcount. That means programming dollars. That means patience, because a lot of the stuff we're going to build, you're not going to eat off that plate for 6 months, 12 months. And you need to believe that, call it thought leadership, is the right way. Because again, back from the deliverables and volume mindset, how many blogs can we write this week? How many social posts did we do? The lens to look through it is, how are we going to change the way people think and act so they see the world the way we do, so they buy our software, assuming you sell software? That's what at like the highest level of your strategy that's the philosophy you have to have. And then you do all the more tactical and decision making of content marketing and content marketing of how does that take form? Do we launch a podcast? Do we launch a live event series? Then those tactical questions become obvious when you start at that high level philosophy and understanding the impact that it can have.
I see a shift. 3 years ago, you and Udi and people like that were doing this stuff. And the rest of us were getting slaughtered at board level. And we're like, hey, we've got this big year planned. We're going to do this stuff. And you got your board and your PE investors going, just spend more money on digital. It's a year before you pay for it. Hell no. And whereas I think now you can take those things to board levels and you will get buy-in because generally PE, they follow what PE does. And now that they've seen Gong successful and other companies like Gong who've gone out and done it, these things get acceptable. Because we had all these battles. We were going down that path of thought leadership and driving a change to getting an industry educated so that they will apply more. But it's a long tail strategy, right? It's work.
Yeah.
And it's not 50 blogs a month and 15 podcasts. It's an actual strategy you're building out. And I think that's another thing you should pat yourself on the back on one day. Like you're part of that group of people who have given the rest of the people who were trying to do this stuff at least something to shine a light on and go, look, it works. This isn't bullshit. This isn't me trying to duck my head in the sand and go, hey, you can't judge me for 12 months. There's legitimate outcomes if you do this. And I think that's something that's powerful that I've seen change in my time.
Man. Devin, you've got a lot going on for you. You've done a lot already in your career. When you do decide to hang up your boots, this has become my favorite question, by the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Just from last night. When you do decide to hang up your boots, what do you want to be known for?
Can I say real quick that I was probably 2 weeks ago, I learned that boots meant cleats. And I love or hate it. It's from watching the David Beckham special on Netflix.
Right.
Because my country's stupid, which I agree, it's stupid. Americans call American football when you don't actually kick the ball too much. And then there's the biggest sport in the world, watched and played by billions, calling it the right football. But yeah, he kept saying boots. And I was like, the hell, they play in the snow? And then he was like, oh no, it's cleats. It's cleats. So what do I want to be known?
No one in the world calls them cleats except Americans.
Oh, really? That's another one too? They're all boots everywhere else?
Oh yeah. We're one footy boots, mate.
I didn't even know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what cleats were until I went to
sides. Yeah. What do you call boots?
What do you mean? What boots?
Like boots for the snow or like hiking
snow
boots? Like a
hiking boots. Hiking boots. Like you can add.
Oh, so descriptor before the type of boot.
Yeah, it's type. It's just you have different types of boots.
So I completely agree that soccer is football.
Yes.
I don't know that I'm sold that cleats are boots because there's a thing called boots and cleats are the things underneath the shoe to make it a cleat. But anyway, okay.
Yeah, we'll sit on that. We'll have to do
for what it's worth. Never played a single. It was a football match. I was going to call it a game. It was a match. What?
Match.
It is a match. I'm like, God, tell me I'm right. It's a match. Never played a single football match in my entire life. Never owned a pair of boots. I played baseball and basketball. So for what it's worth, I'm not like totally ignorant. I also didn't play.
When are you going to hang up your J's?
My J's. Well,
what do you want to be
J's till I'm in the grave, man. I'm being
at work, man.
No, I do like the question.
Wedding shoes. Whatever
when
you
hang
wearing.
up my boots.
That's a better way. When your wedding shoes get finally hung up.
Yeah, man. What I want to be known for, reshaping the game. Reshaping the game. And I know, Sean, you hinted at that. So I'm not just saying that, but when I think about what our mission was at Gong, the mission I keep with me and just the way I operate, I have very little desire to run an existing playbook or to do things the way they've been done. There's something honorable and compelling about finding the new way, finding a better way and being different in doing it. And I was thinking to myself, it's not the path less trodden. It's not the least popular track. It's a path that does not exist. It is just bushes and jungle and brush and all that. And just like getting the machete out and be like, I don't even know for sure if this is the right way, but we are going to figure it out. And if it is, the reward is much higher. There's just like such an outsized reward on the other side. And to be very cliche, the journey is part of that value. It's not always fun to get your teeth kicked in as you're going through moments of doubt and uncertainty and losing and feeling like a failure. But all of that challenge makes the reward that much more enjoyable. And that's what I like to do. And so I hope I have a legacy, and I hope it's that I helped a lot of people as I go through reshaping the game.
You definitely will have a legacy, my friend. You already have one. Yeah, a lot of respect. Continue. Obviously, I'm sure you will to do amazing work. Would love to take you through a quick fire round. Devin, I think I can guess the answers on your behalf for a couple of these, but let's hear from you.
I should warn, of all the parts of an interview, this is where I always am terrible.
Yeah.
They're like fast answers, and I'm like, here's 2 paragraphs, or what are boots? And I'm
Yeah.
like, they're like, you're slowing down the lightning round.
These
These
are
are
favorite
first
thing.
thing.
One answers.
I'll give you the word association. I won't think, I'll just say.
That's it.
Yeah. Trust me,
Favorite
from your
sports thing.
first story, I knew this one was going to be a struggle. So
Favorite sports thing.
Golden State Warriors.
That's good. Well, that's a good choice. I was
Ricky's
waiting for
happy.
Sean. I was waiting for Sean to just never came. Favorite music type.
Hip hop.
these are all I already knew these answers, and I can see Ricky smiling. So I'm like,
I did not. It wasn't something we rehearsed prior, Sean.
I'm very confident you guys did rehearse this.
I didn't. I just have been forcing myself to just answer and be quiet because then I was like hip hop, but I like rap and I grew up on the West Coast. But then I'm like, this is no longer a lightning round. It's just me talking again.
It's just you giving off Ricky's favorite answers. I like
That's
it.
Oh, nice.
favorite movie of all time.
Godfather. And that's not unique, but I just love it.
Man, that's been popular on the show.
It's very popular.
That's hard to go.
Marlon Brando's character, I just want to be more just that composure. It's the composure, not the murder. It's the composure.
Just a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Like, organized crime really speaks to me. Really.
The way you can cut this is going to be amazing. It's the
The editing will be so difficult on this.
Can you do? You should do one misinformation cut of the show afterwards, like a week later, like the misogynist, crime-focused content warlord Devin Reed.
Yeah.
That
I
will be
like
the
The
headline.
Godfather.
I love them. Really lean into
I like The Godfather because the murder and the organized crime, and I want that to be my legacy.
70
Police
ideas
rock up
flooding through
tomorrow.
my head. Favorite place to visit.
Ooh, brain went to San Diego and then Hawaii and then Thailand. So feet in my brain, but probably reverse order. If I had a plane ticket anywhere, I'm going to Thailand or Hawaii because it's closer. Yeah. Feet in the sand and the sun out. I'm happy.
Nice.
Yeah, love it.
And this is a multi-choice answer, man. But there's only one right answer. So let's hear it. Peanut butter.
This is
How do you like yours? Crunchy or smooth?
It's smooth. And if you eat crunchy peanut butter, you're a psychopath. That's the truth.
So again, we'll use that for editing, right? We'll just use the psychopath and then don't worry about the rest. The rest is
get rid of the bit
disappear.
that says smooth and just go, it's crunchy. If you don't, you're a psychopath. Perfect.
Yeah. It's
This went so well, and then you ended on smooth, and I'm like,
I've had that question in other podcasts where I've said it's smooth, and if you say crunchy, I will never trust you, or something like. And I don't trust anyone who says crunchy. And like the host was like, I eat crunchy peanut butter, and I said, this interview is over.
I'm like, firstly distressed that someone else is asking peanut butter questions. I thought it was our thing. Now,
Yeah. Someone's
Once or twice
Maybe-
it comes up, but also people know I eat peanut butter and jelly like a lot. So
Yeah,
sometimes
that's-
people will know that and ask me, and I'll be like, crunchy is not even allowed in the house. If someone enjoys it, they have to eat it on the like it's not allowed.
yeah. I thought we were going to get along so
Are you
well.
guys crunchy or smooth?
Way
100%
crunchy.
crunchy. Like peanut butter has still got
What?
crunches in it. Like,
Crunchy.
Jesus.
You
kids
are eating.
we
Hold on.
have.
You said yes, crunchy. You
Yes.
eat crunchy peanut butter.
Very crunchy.
Crunchy.
So only peanut butter, right?
Crunchy.
I think
Okay, I
someone,
retract.
someone really smart said to me once, if you don't eat crunchy peanut butter, I don't trust you. I think you might have said it slightly differently, but I vibe with that. It makes sense.
So I was going to go back and go, okay, I retract that I don't trust anyone who eats crunchy because I trust both of you, but that does not refrain you from being a psychopath for eating crunchy peanut butter.
I actually agree with
Is
your
that a
statement.
Kiwi? Is that a cultural thing?
What? Eating crunchy?
No, I
I
don't think
don't
so.
know, dude. Like
Nah,
certain,
man.
certain countries, like they eat Nutella, and I'm like,
Oh,
that's like
we eat
they have their
Nutella,
little
we eat
things.
Vegemite, we
We
eat
eat Vegemite.
like we eat everything.
Yeah,
But those are smooth options. So I'm like, why would you also eat smooth peanut butter? Do you know what I mean? There's already three
think-
things
get
that are
it.
smooth.
I think you find if
But I
someone
suppose
says they
you're
like
just
peanut
a
butter,
smooth guy overall.
if they like
so
peanut butter
just-
and jelly, I reckon they tend to smooth, right? Because I
Yeah.
get it'd be
That's
weird if
how
you
I
had
know it.
if you had your jelly with crunchy peanut butter. That kind of would be weird because then you'd have
Easily
like bits of
spreadable.
peanuts.
it is weird.
Yeah.
See, we don't
terrible.
have the
We don't
the
do peanut butter and
jelly
jelly.
thing. That
No.
doesn't exist. That combo does not exist in this part of the
So that
world.
makes sense. We understand the root of our differences, which is like peanut
Yeah.
butter and jelly. Like any American would probably say, name the thing you eat peanut butter with, and it's going to be peanut butter and jelly like 99% of the time. Like it's the
100%.
thing. But if you don't have that, makes sense. Here's the deal. I'm not going to die on the boot hill. I will die on the smooth peanut butter hill. That's where I'm at. Change my vernacular to football, and I'll change soccer to football, and my cleats are now boots. I will do that. But the crunchy peanut butter, I cannot allow.
I'm never
That's-
changing to soccer. It's always going to be soccer. They can go fuck themselves. It's soccer. But
I'm
yeah,
I'm gonna put a message to
all I know
Charlie
is-
after this. I'm like, what's wrong with
Yeah.
you, boy, David? Man,
Yeah.
he's eating. What have you done to him?
I'm worried about your children. You said you got 2 beautiful children. Is this going to be perpetrated? Are you going to
And
listen?
they don't even know Crunchy exists. I'm going to see how many years I can go without them even knowing it exists.
Oh, man.
I don't know. When we get to the US, we're taking him out for some crunchy peanut butter. It's got
He's all for it.
If you come here and we go out, I will eat crunchy peanut butter with you just to celebrate you. But then I have to make you do some American thing that feels unnatural and unholy. But
We're always down.
wear cleats. Where you have to, okay, to the restaurant where I eat
a football that doesn't get kicked.
That is that.
throw a football that doesn't get kicked.
Hey, on the note, man, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing all your
appreciate it.
insight. This has obviously been a blast. So thanks again, Devin.
Of course, this was fun. Great time. Yeah, I'm excited to hear it. And